on the corporate sector. Indeed, it helps them to identify the problems well in time, so that before the year end, and when the final audit is to take place, those particular issues are sorted out. If you need any external advice from your lawyers, from any other consultants, you are prepared for that. So I don't think that the cost-benefit ratio is all that disturbed or offended there. With regard to the knowledge and experience of people who have been on the board for 20 years, if you allow me to be a little more candid on this, you see, if you can keep on making a mistake for 20 years, but repeating that mistake for 20 years does not in itself qualify you that, okay, there is no room for improvement, there is no room for learning. Indeed, I think all of us have this belief in this cardinal principle that acquire knowledge from cradle to grave. So if the directors are made to go through not a nursery class but a very, very interactive session, and I think Mr. Chairman will further explain and throw light as to what kind of training that takes place in the board development series and some other comparable situations. I don't think we can say that a person with 20 years of directorship does not need any sort of orientation. You will be surprised, and I'm saying that with almost 4 decades of public practice experience, that you'll be surprised that there will be people on the board serving for a number of years and may not have the chance or the need to open up the number of articles you have acquainted as to what is there, what can be done, what cannot be done. I just narrate to you one example. In the context of this very task that we are charged with, I was talking to a lawyer friend with regard to this insurance cover. And to my great amazement, he said, Ibrahim, you have shaken me. I never realized, I felt so comfortable that this can happen. I said, please look at section 194. He read and reread and reread. I said, so knowledge and insight kaisi cheeze hain ke, I can say, I am Turam Khan, I have been in public practice for 4 decades, I know all. It is never sufficient, it is never adequate. It is an ongoing process of learning. Corporate sector is changing, the dynamics of business is changing, the corporate law and regime is changing, the other relevant laws are changing, and so I think if one were to spend a little time in getting a better orientation in these things, it will augur well for the affairs of the company and for the director himself.
Thank you. I want to make some, I request you please clarify a few questions. Number one, you mentioned 45 days for ML from, increasing from 30 days. I request you to reconsider it. The reason behind, if you are conducting your first board meeting for the annual audit in September, and now 30 days is not enough for it, it is already late. If you are going for 45 days, means you will supply your ML in November. So first quarter board of directors has been gone in October. Means this ML will be presented in Feb committee, Feb meeting. Means half year has gone, more than half, 8 months has gone. So you are going to review last year performance ML requirements or issues in Feb. So do you think it can serve? I don't think so. So it will not serve the purpose. Okay. Yes, it is true, it can relax the auditors, and there may be some conflict of interest by drafting these lines. Number one. Number two, when we are saying to reduce the number of directors, directorship from 10 to 5, and your point of view that they may not have some time to review, if I convert this like that, an auditor, engaged partners can review 50 audits in 1 month. He has clients 50 audits, and he has to conduct in August and September 50 audits in thorough and make an opinion on that. Do you think an director who has to review the papers of board papers in 1 month, he cannot do so? That is another point. So I think so it is, you have to consider it again.
First, feel free to interact with that. With regard to the time limits for the ML, well, As I said, in these things, there is no magical number that 30 days is too short and 45 days is reasonable and all that. When you formulate recommendations, you do take into account the views of all concerned quarters, all stakeholders, okay? And we progress to a point from a limitless regime where an ML could have not come at all because there was no legal provision in the company's ordinance, okay? And least of all, the time limit. So the code made a very important headway in 2002, where at least for the first time, management letter was given some sort of a quasi-legal recognition, that this is something apart from the short form report an auditor is expected to give. There was no other provision, okay? So that requirement was there, and at that time 30 days was put in. Experience suggests that 30 days was generally perceived to be too short. So I don't think a half year will be gone, because in any case you've got to have a board meeting to approve the accounts and the shareholders meeting for the annual accounts within the time frame of 4 months. Everything has to be done within that. And we are saying that this particular ML requirement is 45 days from the date of the audit report. So if the board meeting has taken place, let's say for June audit, July, August, maybe September and October beginning, then 45 days from that it will not lapse the entire half year. Earlier the better, I agree with you. Nobody is stopping anybody from doing it earlier. But we had to allow for a reasonable time, and it was thought that 45 days is good enough. It is not a very major change from the existing one. With regard to the capacity of the people to serve on more than 10 directorships, and if you are drawing a parallel between an auditor trying to do 50 audits, my friend Umar Chutta is smiling at me that how do you give me so many audits, how can I do that? You see, here don't forget one thing. The role of a director is individualistic. The role of the auditor is institutional. So if a large company or many large companies go to a sole proprietor, obviously that sole proprietor A has 2-3 options. He will not perform the right kind of audit and sign off. Okay? 2, he might do the audit and still might leave the gaps and expose himself to the vulnerabilities of that. But when you go to a firm of acceptable size and recognition, who have got the resources, then saying that how can one auditor do for a sole proprietor, I quite buy your point. For a firm where there are maybe not one audit partners but 15 audit partners, then I think for 15 audit partners what you are saying doesn't hold good. For director it is an individualistic role. He has to perform individually. He cannot assign, he cannot delegate. He has to be himself present in that meeting. So if he is on a board of, let's say, 10 companies, as is presently permissible, and 10 companies, 4 board meetings, so many committees meetings, and usually there are, other than the mandatory, there is 1 meeting or 2 meetings over above that as necessitated by the circumstances. So it is generally not possible for a director to give quality time and attention and focus on the affairs of the. And this 5 is not a very, very low number. Even serving on 5 boards, allow me to just say from my personal experience, just serving on 2 boards was a tall order if you really want to play a role in an honest and proper manner. And I think PICG did carry out a small analysis, and our experience, our finding was that on average, a person is not a director of more than 6 point some companies. Not 10. So bringing it down from 10 to 5 is not all that drastic. And I think it will be good for the corporate sector if and you will increase the number of people who would be in due course of time be prepared and qualified enough to serve on the various boards.
Yeah, could you please explain the reason of putting a ban on a number of executive directors on board? Because there are several heads in several departments in a company, large company, and if they are on board, so they are more accountable to the chairman, or especially in the multinational companies, as they are governed by outside. So putting them away is really, and when you have, also you have put a ban on the independent directors, so that was enough. That's what I mean to say.
Okay. First of all, we have not put a ban on independent